as we say in the UK, every Englishman's home is his castle, right?
Yeah.
We decide who we let in our homes and who we need to keep on the other side of the garden gate. If we're adamant about that, we must respect others who do too. And of course, when I say others, I mean other nations deciding who enters their territory.
Mm.
If we look at places like China and perhaps North Korea, to make it past their border, we need a series of documents or obligations to be met.
Mm.
Even Australia, of all places, makes it quite clear of what we can or can't do when we visit when when we visit their shores.
Yes.
And if the viewer is caught being too economical with the truth, they
Mm.
don't even get the chance to visit Bondi Beach and remain in the airport, and they stay there just to get the next flight home.
Yes.
We rarely hear about complaints being made about this, except sometimes by the people who are turned away, feeling badly done to, even though many a times their motive was to break the law and to do something they would not be allowed to do. What I'm trying to say is that it happens all over the world,
Mm.
and nobody has the absolute right to cross borders of that is as a natural right. So it's a
Yes.
privilege if you
Mm.
visit the country. So the recent stance taken by the US about student visas seems to have caused an outcry and been criticised by many, even in Britain. How's that special relationship coming along, Prime Minister? The US simply do not want radical youngsters who are prone to make life difficult to students who are paying money to go to a further education agency to learn.
Mm.
Recent problems in some universities like Harvard and a traditional faculty which is losing its stature because of these uprisings by both staff and students. No wonder their numbers of national students is going down. If it's not protests about Israel, it's pronouns. If it's not feminism, it's trans issues. It's making it difficult to learn these days at these institutions. And so what did the EU government say? If you don't want to come here to take classes and learn, don't come.
Mm.
You're here just to mess around.
Yeah.
You're not welcome. It's something that the UK should think about, as the student visa regulations are so lax that unsavoury characters are turning up on the doorstep enrolled in phantom universities. They're enrolled in universities that are just fronts,
Mm.
don't
Yeah.
actually exist, you know.
Mm.
I mean, come on, if people are willing to jump through hoops to do the wrong thing, why don't they just use the same energy and do the right thing? What good can an unruly person do in an already confused population in the UK? If you set out on the wrong foot, there's a possibility of not getting back on the right foot.
Mm.
So kudos to the US keeping the riffraff away no matter where it is from. Special relationships, Prime Minister, or not.
Right.
There you are.
I, okay. I'm going to open about. I'm just going to pick up something that's not the main thrust of your discussion about the special relationship between the UK and the US. Every time
Yeah,
I hear about it, I feel like falling off my seat laughing.
yeah.
Um, there may have been a decently nice relationship in the 1980s between the US and the UK. Yeah. You got two like-minded leaders who could sit down. Bearing in mind the US did do a couple of things that were not necessarily in the UK's interests. Yeah. Grenada was one, and I think there's one other incident. But yeah, but yeah, the next thing is Reagan gets a phone call from number 10 and Mrs. Thatcher queuing his ear off. Yeah. Which I think he was quite flattered that, she didn't mess around. She said what she felt. Um, it was a now this is getting so I don't believe it's a special relationship really. And I mean JD Vance, the vice president of the US, who's probably the most active vice president I've ever seen in my lifetime on a lot of things. Yeah. I thought I picked up on a phrase he meant when he was talking to Keir Starmer's face. He said, "Well, we do have a relationship, a special a relation." He stopped using a relationship with the UK as we do with the rest of Europe. In other words, you're not privileged in that. Yeah.
And the US hates Europe.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, I mean, yeah, the British and the Americans are two nations divided by a common language. Um, yeah, we are. The UK is not the US. I don't. Yeah, to say special relationship, we're not going to follow what the US do. They shouldn't be following what the UK do. Two different countries now. With regards to um, entry into educational establishments, yeah. Um, yes, you go somewhere to learn. It's like my daughter. I pay for her to go to college. Yeah, we put her through school. I expect her to come out with qualifications, not to be talking about activism and everything else. Um, I mean, yeah, I talk about the home front. If my daughter has an issue about world affairs and all that, she knows she can come and discuss it with me. Yeah. And I made it quite clear my feelings about it. I say, yes, be interested in politics, but yeah, don't go front line and start throwing bottles or anything because you won't have my support at that point. Yeah. Um, it is a yes, these universities and colleges, and I believe it's true because I've seen it in the UK. They are fronts for um, indoctrination, recruitment of causes. Um, I went through some of the British college system, and I saw some of it there myself way back when. Yeah, where we did subjects and we were taught about um, different things to way to think. The lectures were getting quite frustrated with one class I was in that we weren't going with what they were trying to tell us. Yeah, about a couple of subjects. Yeah. Um, yeah, one even resigned. So I considered that a victory. Yeah. Um, it was a yeah, these places are educational. The president of the US has taken a look at what he's paying for, what the money is. Um, yeah, there is also an issue. When do educational places become multi-billion-dollar businesses? And I'm beginning to think that's the bottom line. They'll go with whatever ideology brings in the most money. And if it's foreign, yeah. And if
Well,
it,
when we talk about the US and the education system in the US, I mean,
yeah,
the majority of the US is private education, and so they
well,
are business. They are to make profits. The
yeah,
problem is that they get bloated. They get so much money into the
mm,
bank accounts that
mm,
it's the guys at the top
yeah,
that spread the money around, and they try to use that money as to influence others.
yeah. Uh,
And that's when the rot sets in.
mm, well, that's it. Well, it's. I mean, certainly in probably the past 50, 60, probably 70 years, um, educational establishments have been, let's put it right, left leaning. A majority of the staff there have been left leaning. Yeah. When I was at school, even our teachers were probably 60% left leaning. Yeah. They used to tell us about their beliefs they could do. Oh, we used to go from one class with one ideology to another. But the teachers were quite balanced about it, though. Yeah.
Well, in the
Uh,
UK, it's different because the UK, the vast majority is public,
yeah.
public, not private schools.
Yeah. But,
And when the teachers are governed by a teachers' union,
mm,
which in the 80s and 90s was a very Labour
yeah,
left-leaning
still are. But yeah.
organisation,
Yeah.
then the tendency is that the teachers were left-leaning. However, to be to make a school a good school, you
Mm,
should be in the middle somewhere
yeah.
and
Yeah.
be open to all arguments. And unfortunately, as these schools in the US are all left leaning, are all private,
Yeah.
and if
Yeah.
the director says jump, you say how high,
Mm,
and if he says we're on the left, then you're on the left.
yeah. I mean, yeah, okay, I've just made a statement that the UK is not the US, so yeah, it's not a good model to use. But last week or week before, the Oxford Union, they have a debating society. They invited
It's Cambridge, by the way. It's Cambridge.
The
Cambridge
Oxford,
Uni.
was it Cambridge? I thought this was Oxford. This one.
No.
Um, that, that,
With
that, that
Charlie Kirk.
yeah, was it Cambridge? I thought it was
Yeah.
Oxford. I mean, I prefer Cambridge. Yeah, okay. Well, one of them. It was. They invited him. They invited him there. Um, to to speak. Yeah, even if the people who ran the society didn't agree with him, they thought it would be an interesting debate, and it was. I haven't watched all of it. I've watched clips of it. So, if yeah, just to say that, I'm not. I'll be quite honest. I find Charlie Kirk is interesting. Do I agree with everything he says? No, I don't. Yeah, but he has a very extreme MAGA agenda. Okay, fair enough. But I thought that was quite interesting. The way he spoke to some of the students, and he won us some over. Yeah, he was talking very politely. He doesn't shout. They're banging the desk and all that when he doesn't agree with them, and he says, "Calm down, please. I'll let you speak. Let me speak." Yeah. Um, okay, this is where the debate should be happening. The activism that I'm seeing now is quite frankly something that wouldn't have been tolerated in my school or in my college. Yeah, when I was in the UK, and I know the same is true for the US. Okay, in the 1960s as well, they clamped down on it then. Yeah, because yeah, the attitude then. There's this famous thing of Ronald Reagan saying to um, to the administrators of a university or college, no, it's your responsibility. These people are here to learn. This is a place of education. Yeah. And you keep talking about, oh, it's good to have public debate. You learn how to have a public debate. Yeah. A discourse. Um, I get
Well,
annoyed. Yeah.
that's why Oxford and Cambridge have these. It's a debating society.
Yeah.
And they're like sort of like the bee's knees when it comes to universities.
Yeah.
They're the most famous in the UK,
Yes.
and and they need to show that.
Mm.
In this case with Charlie Kirk, I was a little bit disappointed. Charlie Kirk, I agree with a lot of what he says.
Yeah.
It's just I don't like him.
Well, okay. Yeah.
I, him and Ben Shapiro, the
Yeah.
way they present themselves, that they really grind my gears. But don't worry
Yeah.
about that.
Yeah. Yeah.
What he says, I do agree with him.
Yeah. It's the messenger.
Um,
It's the message, not
and
the messenger. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And so I was a bit disappointed by some of the students in Cambridge
Mm.
uh, because they did want to stifle him,
Yeah. Of course. Yeah.
and that isn't a debate.
No.
That it turns out to be a lecture, and they should a lecture is not a debate.
Yeah. Um, there were a lot of good ones there as well who disagree, but were
Well,
very courteous as well. So, in
yes,
fairness
yes,
to a lot
yes,
of them,
yeah,
yeah, well done, guys. Yeah.
yeah.
Um, even if I didn't agree with you, I like the way that a couple of them put their point across. I thought it was very, very articulate. Yeah. Which is good. Yeah, good. And it's what you want to see. Um, yeah, when you talk about Charlie Kirk, it is extreme, but maybe I do believe that sometimes you need, on probably both sides, but when I say extreme, I don't mean violent, I mean extreme views to actually pull things into the centre. And you probably, if you've got this there, people can reject an extreme view on their side and then maybe listen to the guy on the other side. I know this is all theoretical sociology, but that's the way it should work. Yeah. Sometimes an extreme will make people actually consider what they do actually believe. Um, and yeah, I mean, we used to have debates about different things in history classes and everything else when I was at school. We were encouraged to do this. And I went to a Catholic school. We were encouraged to debate our faith as well. Yeah. It wasn't a, you will believe this. What do you believe? Yeah. Okay. The risk is there is, yeah, you can end up circling down and being very confused. Um, yeah, the Catholic Church is not a democracy, as I've always been told. Democracy is a man-made construct. Spirituality and faith is not. Yeah, it's not a democracy. But do you believe in something? Um, Again, I totally support what the US administration is doing. It's putting a halt on it, in effect. Yeah. Are you coming here to learn? What are you? Who's paying for your course? Yeah. Where's the money coming from? Almost. Yeah. Um, it it's. I mean, when when a wealthy parent is sponsoring their child, um, they do not want to see their child appear on CNN or Fox News at the front.
Most
Yeah, throwing a bottle. Yeah.
well,
Um,
pitching
yeah.
the tent. The thing is, that I mean, pitching a tent on the front lawn of the
Yeah.
of the university.
Yeah.
The thing is, that these radical students, it if they want to just be radical
Mm,
by themselves, be
yeah.
radical by
Yeah.
yourself.
Yeah.
Go to class. Don't go miss out on the classes,
Mm.
but don't expect that the whole university has to close down just because of you.
Well, this is it. It's
That's what
entitlement.
the US government is trying to stamp out.
Yeah.
It can't really do anything about its own national students
But it can.
because
But
there's
yeah.
nowhere to
Yeah.
send them.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
But
when
yeah.
when you get foreign students coming across and they're
Yeah.
they're waving their flags
Mm,
and camping out and threatening other students,
mm.
that's when you've got to draw the line. And
Absolutely. Yeah.
kudos to the US for that, for doing that.
Well, I think they've been stamping down on it, and when you see that they pulled in those um, the administration of the universities, and they're facing off some very bright, whatever you might think about politicians, they're not idiots. Yeah, they might be self-serving, but they're not idiots. And yeah, they went in there and they ripped them apart. Um, and the trouble is with the when you like you say you got the administration that have one ideology, one idea, and that's it. They've already got their script, and they can't go off script for a lot of reasons. They can't debate. They can't say to it, and yeah, it is to go out and attack. And when we live in a foreign country, we live in Brazil. Yeah, we may or may not agree with the Brazilian administration here. Yeah, we'll tell why. If somebody asks me, what do you think? How could Brazil be run better? I could tell them. Yeah, and it doesn't matter which administration it is, by the way. There's always room for improvement. Yeah, um, and yeah. So, but yeah, if you start going around causing trouble in a country that's not even your own, where you're going to be disappearing in 3 years, 4 years time, unless you're planning to immigrate, um, then that is wrong. Mummy and daddy are paying for you to be there. In theory, yeah. You end up on the news, yeah. I know what the next phone call from daddy from either either a wealthy family across Europe or the Middle East will be to little to where their son is, yeah. Even a Russian, even a Russian phone call. Yeah, could you imagine a Russian father seeing his son all radicalized and anti this and anti that? Yeah, if he's paying for him to have an education or her have an education. Yeah, I mean, to me, it's right. You can't have outside people coming in and telling you how to run your country or what. Yeah, it's one thing to sort of say, I think it's better if it was done like this or done like that. Yeah. Um, when you do have certain sects, okay, the sects, for example, the Jewish were locked in a room in one or two of the universities, literally having to lock themselves in a room. That's wrong. And whatever you might think about what the state of Israel is doing in Gaza, it's not them doing it. And many of them haven't even come out and supported one way or another. Yeah, they're there to learn. And the Jewish way is to learn. Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
Um, if you ever, yeah, if you've ever met Jews, they are expected to become part of a family business somewhere. That's how it is. Yeah, and yeah, appearing on the 6 o'clock news is bad for the family business. Um, yeah, it I'm I'm all for yeah, okay. It's free speech, but free speech has to be taught within boundaries. It's not entitlement. I can say what I want. It's how I say it. Yeah. Um, if I want to, I mean, yeah, it's good that you get the likes of Charlie Kirk and others go around on the campuses in the US. Yeah. And they will engage with people. There's lots of videos. And I saw one yesterday of a girl who was evidently not a Trump supporter, but she stood there. She was very nervous, but she was very polite to Mr. Kirk. And at the end, she asked if she could have one of the hats.